friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here for another Monday This and That vlog where I talk about all different kinds of topics, giving you some tips on various things, leading you back to some old videos I may already have out, letting you know of videos yet to come, answering questions that may have come in the past week, and whatever I feel like talking about. So let's get to the topics of today. Now, the elk pepperoni. I'm just going to cover it real quickly here, but please know I'll be doing a more thorough video down the road. I have a little bit more experimenting I want to do with this, but I want to go ahead and share with you real quickly the process. So if you want to just kind of delve into it and do your own experimentation, you can give it a try. Now, especially that we've gone back to being pork free, I've been trying to come up with an idea for a pepperoni that I can use when I make homemade pizza. Now, in the past, my idea was to make more of a sausage by just taking ground beef, elk, or venison and adding my Italian spices to it and just cooking it up and putting on the pizza. And that worked pretty good, but really still wanting to work on an actual pepperoni type recipe. So I did a little bit of looking around. I found a basic recipe just to give me an idea of the process and some of the ingredients. So I always tailor things to suit us. So the recipe did say specifically that, use extra lean meat. And it was for beef pepperoni, but in this case I thought, well, I'll use elk because we have lots of ground elk and it is very, very lean. In fact, there's pretty much no fat in it at all. And so I worked with that, but I found it was just a little too dry. It's like it still needed fat. So on the next batch, what I did was I added about a tablespoon of almond oil. You could use any kind of fat you wanted per pound when I made this up. So what I'm going to do is give you just a really rough ratio of the spices and herbs that I used. It was about a tablespoon of granulated garlic and a tablespoon of granulated onion. Again, this is per pound. And then a teaspoon approximately of each of the following: red pepper flakes, black pepper, liquid smoke, oregano, rosemary, salt, and honey. So the process is then that you work all these things into the meat, and I always just use my hands as the easiest way to really blend things very well when you're working with ground meats. And then you let it actually sit. You want to cover it and let it sit in your refrigerator for about up to 2 days. And that's just going to help all the flavors really infuse into the meat. So you're basically kind of curing it. Then you're going to take it at that point and form it into your log shape. And that's going to be however long and narrow you want it to be. So the last batch I made, since I did 2 pounds, I made 2 of those. And then you're going to cook it at a low heat for around 8 hours. Now, the first batch I made, I'll put a picture of it here. I followed the heat setting for that. And for my oven, my range does get kind of hot. It's a little bit hotter. And I thought I'd just try it though. So I went ahead and put it in my range to start with. And I found even with me turning it every few minutes to help keep it a round shape, it still got really dark on the outside in just 6 hours. So I didn't even go the full 8 hours and it still seemed overdone, overcooked. And that was at 200 degrees. So I decided on the next batch I was going to go even lower, but instead of doing that, I went ahead and did it on the wood stove, keeping track of what the temperature on the wood stove was. And as the temperature rose, it got hotter through the day. I went ahead and lifted it up higher, but I had better control over it that way and was able to turn it and keep a better eye on it. Now, when I first cut into it, I still found some of the parts of it weren't thoroughly cooked all the way through. So I simply sliced it up, laid the slices back out on the tray, and then let them bake for a little bit longer. And it took a good part of the day, 6 to 8 hours, right around in there. And that one definitely turned out a lot better with adding the fat and then just keeping a closer eye on it while I baked it. And Patrick tried it and he said he really likes it. I still think it needs just a little bit more flavor, so I'll be tweaking it a little bit more. And I'm also thinking about trying a batch mixing the ground elk with ground turkey to see how well that turns out, just to see if it gets a different texture or color, because you'll find that your red meats, when you're doing it this way, are going to turn out less red. It's also going to depend on the kind of spices that you use as well. So anyway, that's just a real quick overview on how I did that. And again, I'll be shooting a more detailed video down the road. So it's going to be a while out because I still got to experiment a little bit more. And then I can give you a more exact measurements when I go to do that video. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was dried goods. So my last order from Misfits, I decided I really want to put up some more dried cabbage so I can have it on hand for whatever, whether it be making cold cannon, homemade kimchi, and yes, you can use dried goods to make homemade kimchi. I've done it once so far. I'm going to be doing it again. And so I went ahead and dehydrated up about 2 heads, and each head filled up almost a quart jar each. I could have packed them tighter, but I think I'll do some more and then get a couple more heads of cabbage and then see if I can pack these tighter and then another jar as well. We'll see how that works. But I wanted to bring that up for also the reason that a lot of people ask me, well, I don't even know how to use dried foods. Well, it's actually pretty simple. I even did a video just within this past year that I'll link to down below. But even since shooting that video, I've been working with more things. And so it's really going to depend on what you're making. But if you're already making like sauces, gravies, and soups, and you're wanting to use the dried goods in, all you got to do is throw them in straight into the soup or the sauce or whatever it is, because it's already in a liquid form. And as that's cooking, it's going to rehydrate those foods. But if you're wanting to take those same dried goods and use them maybe in a stir fry or something where you're not already cooking it into a liquid, then all you have to do is soak it. So here's an example right here. I took a few pictures the other day when I took some of that pepperoni. This is some of the overcooked pepperoni. I figured it'd be a good way to use that up. It's still good. It's just a little dry and just a little bit well done. And I cut that up, and then I took some of my dried black olives, my dehydrated mushrooms. These were the Italian oyster mushrooms that I bought from a local seller, and some of my own tomatoes that I had dehydrated. These were not tomato flakes like I like to do a lot of, but I do some tomato pieces where I can use them in this way. And I think there might have been something else I threw in there. Put it in a small bowl. In this case, I simply used water. I used warm water and then just let it sit until I was ready to start making Patrick's scrambler for him. And you can use any liquid. If the warmer the liquid is, the faster it'll work. It'll rehydrate those goods. But it doesn't have to be. It can just be room temperature or even cold water, but you're just going to have to let it sit longer if you do that. So I just used hot water and let them sit in that bowl, and they rehydrated quite well. And then I just threw all that into the egg mixture and cooked it up, and it turned out really good. So it's really quite simple, but you may still want to go check out the video I'll be linking to down below. These two methods are going to work with most things. There's always going to be certain dehydrated foods that never quite rehydrate well. Let's say, for example, if you followed, years ago when I took some turkey and just dehydrated it more to just eat as a snack, and thought maybe I should try this with some chicken and see if I can cook it up. Well, the chicken in the turkey is the same way. It's just too hard and chewy that if you try to cook it, like if you're making a chicken a la king or something, it's not going to rehydrate well. You'd be better off powdering it and then just adding it that way. But what I found by accident is that if you take that cooked turkey, chicken, beef, corned beef, whatever it is, freeze it after you've cooked it, then dehydrate it, it totally changes the texture, and then it makes it light and crispy, and it rehydrates quite well. So, I've been talking, if you've been following me for any length of time, you'll know I've been mentioning that one quite a bit because it was such an exciting discovery to make that I keep trying it with different meats and find it seems to work no matter what I do. And that also works for things that have been previously pressure canned and then dehydrated. So you wouldn't have to freeze it if you had like some pressure canned roast or chicken or something. You wouldn't have to open it, freeze it, and then dehydrate it. You just open it and put it right on your dehydrating trays and then dehydrate it out, and it will have that same texture. So both freezing the cooked meat or pressure canning or cooking it has the same result. All right, now I'm just going to share with you a story because I haven't shared with you guys yet that it's been at least a couple months now that we got 3 more chickens. So earlier in the year, we got 2 chickens from our friends, and then we got 3 more recently. Well, one of the 3 has ended up, because we're getting them while they're still pretty young, still at that stage where they could still be a rooster and not know. Well, one of them is a rooster, and actually I'm quite thrilled. I love him to pieces. He's beautiful. He still is very skittish around me, and so he doesn't like to let me get too close, but I did get a video of him crowing the other day. A quick little video, I'll put it right here. And so his feathers are coming in quite beautifully. I'm starting to see his little spurs growing. So I'm actually happy to have a rooster. I've been wanting one for a long time, but just a little concerned because I don't want to bother the neighbors. But so far, no issues, and he doesn't have a super loud crow. I don't know if that's just because he's young still, but I like it. But I like the idea of a rooster because I know how protective they are of the hens. Anyway, I got that, but then here's my other story, was the other 2 chickens. One is, her name's Roxy, and she has this funny little poof of feathers right on the top of her head. But her coloring is very similar to my black sex lynx because she gets that nice bronze color in her black feathers. And then when the sun hits her black feathers, they kind of have this nice shine of teal, purple, colors like that. So she's pretty. Patrick thinks she looks like a vulture, which kind of does, but I still think she's cute. And then the other one was another silvery colored chicken that I called Ruthie. Well, a few days ago, Patrick was bringing leaves from the neighbors because the neighbors know we'll take all their leaves from their trees and start spreading them on our garden areas. And so he was taking them, and we'll put some of them even in the chicken coop as bedding, and it works great. And we spread them all over the place. Well, you know how chickens are. If you have chickens, they kind of freak out anytime you're bringing anything new in, especially carrying big bags. And so chickens are running around and squawking, and at first didn't think anything of it, but then I went out there later and I couldn't find Ruthie. And I was so sure that maybe she'd flown over the fence when she freaked out and something got a hold of her. And we walked the whole neighborhood. We never did find her. We couldn't find any feathers to clue us in that something had got a hold of her. But anyway, I was sure she was gone. And I was really kind of heartbroken. And even though I hadn't had a chance to really develop this relationship with her like I have with my Buff Orpingtons that I've had for 6 years, I was heartbroken. And anyway, so yesterday I'm out throwing some goodies out to my chickens, and I hear just on the other side of the fence in the neighbor's backyard, which keep in mind, we looked back in there, we looked over the fence, we couldn't see her anywhere after all this. And I sound like a chicken calling like, hey, I'm over here. I peek through the fence, and there she is in their backyard. So I walk over there. It doesn't look like they're home. So I just went ahead and was able to get her back into our own yard. And I could tell she was so happy to be home. So here's a picture of her here on the roost that last night after we got her back in there. And I could tell she was just like, oh, I'm so happy to be back with everybody I know. But the funny thing is, I'm positive she must have ended up way down the neighborhood somehow. Because the next morning after she disappeared, I go out to, because, we ship off packages. People are always ordering something. So I go out to put the flag up on our mailbox, and I can hear quite a ways down the street. It sounds like a chicken making some kind of sound that just, again, sounded like a lost chicken. And I'm like, well, maybe that's a crow, because it was coming from an area where I know nobody has chickens. And so I was like, did somebody maybe got the chicken in their backyard or something? And I wasn't sure. And I'm like, nah, she's got to be gone. And anyway, I think what happened is somehow she ended up way down the neighborhood and eventually worked her way back and ended up in the neighbor's backyard. And so anyway, I was really thrilled to get her back. But yeah, so we have 3 more chickens, and I keep forgetting to tell you guys about it, and thought I'd lost one. And now she's back, and I'm just thrilled. I was so happy to find her. So anyway, now a couple more things before I close out this video are about, well, I do want to bring up the Nakano knives. I know some of you probably get tired of hearing it, but I got to keep getting the word out there as long as the sale's going on, because I don't know if you're ever going when you'll see 30% off the Nakano knives again. So I want to make sure if anyone's been considering it, now is the time. If you go through the link in my description box and then use the coupon code Rain Country, you can get 30% off the Nakano knives. And so that's the only reason I keep saying that, is I want to make sure those who are interested and can't afford it know that, you know, now's the best time to get them, because of that 30% discount that you can only get by going through my link. So I love mine. I have quite a few of them now. They've been very generous to me, and I really appreciate them. And but like I keep saying, I've made it 57 years using, you know, whatever garage sale fine knives, but you know, I am happy with these. They've been my favorite. So I've got a couple laying here. I've got the knife block and the sharpener, and I've just been very pleased with everything that I've had from them. So now the other thing I want to mention too is collaborations. I'm going to be closing out the craft collaboration. I was going to close it out right at the end of November, but we'll see how it goes. If I can get plenty enough submissions in within this next week, then I'm going to close that out at the end of this November 2023. And then after that, the next one will be the fermenting collaboration. So if you're wanting to put anything into the fermenting collaboration, you can start sending that to me now. Just make sure that if you're sending photos to either one of those collaborations, make sure you mark your email accordingly and put them in separate emails. So all the pictures that you want to send for the craft collaboration in one email entitled Craft Collaboration, all the pictures you want to send for the fermenting collaboration in one email titled Fermenting Collaboration. And just know that I typically am only going to use up to 3 photos per person. And so if you send me 10, I'm only going to pick the top 3. And but again, please, all in one email for each collaboration. And then another one is, I've already shot 2 videos so far that are waiting to publish, and I'm getting ready to shoot a 3rd one. But people have been sending into me their natural healing testimonies. So this can be using, you know, anything natural to help heal whatever. And if you've got a testimony you would like to share about something that worked for you, whether it be using castor oil to help with digestive issues or eye issues or skin issues or whatever it is, or using comfrey or yarrow, or it doesn't matter. What any kind of natural thing that you can share that I'm allowed to talk about on YouTube, at least, because there's some natural things you're not allowed to talk about. Please send those to me, and I will very likely be reading them in a future video. So I'm going to have this whole series of videos where I read people's testimonials out loud. It's been fun. I've been enjoying reading them. I've been enjoying putting these videos together. So the first one should be publishing maybe this week or next week. I don't remember. But anyway, yes, I have 2 ready to go, and I want to get a 3rd one going, and I'm happy to do as many as I can throughout the year. I would love to be able to do at least one of those per month. That would be great, because I think those real life stories are what really can hit home. You know, we can hear that, we can read the data, we can read this, we can read that, we can read people like me sharing with you all the benefits of these things, but maybe I don't have all that experience of those things working for me like I do with some things. But when you hear people who've had the actual experience that they can say, yes, this worked for me in this area, then, you know, that just really, it's encouraging. And I love that. So that's it for my this and that for the week. And if you got any thoughts, ideas you'd like to share, please put them in comments down below. Those comments always do help the algorithms, by the way. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.